Okay, so we have done most of the vehicle. All we've got left is the interior. So I'm going to bring up a render here. This is what we've got at the moment. Now I basically did a quick render of about 80 samples and that's 100%. So this is at quite a small resolution. I'll just zoom in a bit here for you. Even that recording is small. Alright, so I also just quickly comped it into a scene. So if I crank it back, this is the original that I got out of Blender. Now you can see when it's in Blender, it doesn't look very good at all. It's because we have no scene in the background and it just looks weird. But as soon as you bring in a environment, so I didn't actually map my camera, the angle of the vehicle and the angle of the environment is completely off, but that's fine. It's just one that I picked up. Oliver Huth is the person who photographed this image, by the way. Alright, applied a bit of curves, and I separated out the shadows from the vehicle, and then basically did a little bit of post-processing. So you can see this looks relatively realistic. It's not photorealistic at this stage. That will come with good lighting, good rendering, and some good composition. So the textures themselves are fine at this stage. Apart from this one up here, I definitely need to fix up this one, but I'm actually going to show you some of the shaders I've been using. In the time lapse it was probably going a little too fast for you guys to see the actual shader techniques that I've been using. So I will go in and show you as I fix up that one. And we've just got the interior to do, and then that is it. And after that, we're just going to do we're basically going to set up this. So I'm going to go through and set that up for you. Alright, so here is our vehicle at the moment. And just going to get rid of this one. We don't need that one. That was just a several lamp that I was using. And yeah, let's come in and we're going to make sure simplify is set to 0 so that we can render fast. And let's turn off the mechanics for now, because we don't need those. So yeah, let's just have the weapons layer on. So just this one here. And what we're going to do is select this, bring this one down, so that we've got our full node graph. Now node graphs look very complex when you first glance at them. Even for me, I've been working with nodes for some time now, and I look at a node graph, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what this is doing. But when you just go through it, it actually makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to start this one preparing for its render. It takes quite a while now to load up all the shaders for the render. Alright, so we've got quite a few little bits and pieces here. I have this node. This node here is a global controller node. Now, it is basically, I've grabbed some nodes, I've put them in a group, and I've linked them out into each of my shaders, so that I can just come in here and I can globally control how much dust is on in the vehicle, how much dirt is on it. Dirt and dust, I believe dirt, I didn't actually use it, it was just dust. This top one here is this one. That is weapons. So I'm going to rename this one. This one here is weapons dust. And you can see it's not mapped into the artillery barrel, but I believe I mapped it into this one. One of these anyways. So yeah, that's how these work. So this rust that we've got on these ones, I didn't texture this rust. That is a completely procedural rust. It's, I don't like using procedurals most of the time. I generally like to texture things out myself, but as I'm running out of time to finish this tutorial, I have had to resort to a one of these, effectively. So yeah, got quite a sharp line going through there. I think that is just the gloss, yeah. So coming through, we can remap this using this color ramp. So you can see I've got a dirt image coming to a color ramp, and we can effectively sharpen up the dirt there. We can adjust where it is. So we can come back and we can adjust how much dust is actually on this thing. And that's just plugged into the factor values. Now this color ramp is a very useful node. I would recommend using the color ramp for a lot of things. So I believe I used it in this one as well. Yep, there we go. See how I've got contrast set up to 100. Without this color ramp here, I just plug that directly into there. You'll see we get all these funny colors. That's because contrast set to 100. This is taking contrast, making it really sharp, but what it's also doing is it's taking the minimum and maximum values to like -100 and 100 instead of 0 and 1. So by plugging it through a color ramp node, you get that control over the colors, and it will also limit it to 0 and 1. And you can also pinch things up and make them tighter and stuff like that. So the color ramp is a very useful tool. I'd recommend using it for basically any time you need to do that. So that's how I created that, just a noise texture set to 16.7, 13.9 roughly. The scale will, I was set to 5.5, sorry I've got an input here. The scale is going to make it bigger or smaller rust patches. So if we got smaller, we get these massive rust patches. If we go really big, we get lots of little ones. So, what was that, 3.5? About there anyway. And yeah, effectively that's how that one there works. Alright, so I'm going to have to come through and repaint this one, but I'll do that a little bit later. So just showing you a few of the other shaders we've got going on here. We'll just come down to one of the machine guns, click this one. You can see we have a very big node graph here, which is actually just the same as all the other ones. So I've got these ones, it's effectively what was in that group before, and there's just mapped through the color ramp, and so that's our rust. So I've got two there. One of them is for the metal, one of them is for the rust, so they're slightly offset from each other, and then I have a dust that is being placed over the top. And we've got this one here, shader black metal. We could probably change this one something a little more relevant. So if we just had, let's go rust, we can bring up rust dark dusty, I think is the one. Yep, there we go. So that's just linked over that colour now. Looks a little better. Alright, so just showing you some more stuff before we get into the interior, which is the video we're on at the moment. So I've got these ones here. These are just the cables that come out. I've used the standard rubber shader, and I've just coloured it different colours, and that is perfectly fine like this. Okay, so that is effectively our shading network. So I'm just going to grab this one here and switch back over to Blender Render. Going to untick the nodes. So actually we'll leave the nodes on this one, and we're going to grab artillery, and oh, it's been deleted. So we'll just uncheck the nodes. I'm going to create a new texture, which should be locked in here. Artillery mask dirt. Coordinates are going to be UV set to texture, and influence can be color. So if we come in here and just go isolate this one, make it shadeless, this is our texture. Alright, so bring up this, we can go shading smooth. Alright, that's already set to smooth. So you can see we've got these lines going around it. Now these lines just look like that's where I painted, and that's what's happened. So if we go to texture paint mode, grab our fuzzy brush, I'm just gonna user preferences, material, and texture paint plus, which is an add-on by Bart Crouch, I believe his name is an awesome developer. And I don't think that texture paint. There we go. Now it's on. Okay, so we're going to use the blur brush with a strength of 1, and just going to turn off that radius there. I don't think I'm painting on it at the moment. Easy way to make sure that you're painting on something is untick that little eye and then click the paint. There we go. I'm not sure why, but sometimes it just, if clicking that paintbrush doesn't work, uncheck the eye, then check the brush, and then it should work. And just bring that up in there. Pressing home. Home is frame all, so that's just to frame in on stuff quite easily. And just going to check airbrush as well, which may not do anything in this. No, it won't. The other one we can use is we can use the smear tool. Just going to maximize this and turn off airbrush. And that looks really weird. Yeah, smear. There we go, that was what I was doing. The jitter was turned up to 1. So, strength up to 1, we're going to use a softer fall off. Down a little. Not quite liking how this is going, so what I'm going to do, going to side view here, we're going to reset this, so I'm just going to grab the brush in here and make sure it's set to brush. I'm just going to brush it over into white. Which means 100% affected by the dust. Grab the black with the low strengths. And just paint roughly over the whole thing, and then we're going to paint a little darker in between these sections. Alright, and of course, being the forgetful person I am, I have forgotten an important thing, which is to turn off occluding colour. Alright, so we can darken this all a fraction, something like that will do, and then we'll just darken these midsections a little. Just blur out the spots it didn't get. Not quite sure why I'm worrying about these ones, they're not actually going to be gotten, but oh well. So if these colours are roughly matched up, we can grab that smooth tool again, and we're just going to brush them up over, and there we go. Right, that'll do. And just by pressing Alt S, we can save that image, which is save image there. Alright, so switching back into object mode, going to switch back into cycles render, use nodes, and just going to go switch this over to rendered, and we'll see how this one here looks. If you have any questions, by the way, of how to work with node groups, how to do any of that stuff, there are some great tutorials over at cgcookie.com by Jonathan Williamson, who does those. Oh, this has disappeared. You can also ask me questions directly and I will answer them. Okay. That was a problem. I forget sometimes that Cycles doesn't work very well in isolated view. You've actually just got to press Shift H to hide things. And Alt H to bring them back. It'll build through the BDH again. And yeah, I'm much happier with that barrel now. Now you notice I've got these ammunition packs. These are black, they're clean, same as these barrels are quite clean. I figured these are something that gets replaced regularly, so I have had them as a good shader. I'll have grab this one and we're going to go let's go rust. I'm just going to make this one here quite rusty. Let's go rust dark dusty. Or perhaps we'll go rust dark without the dust. Dust is because it's a very deserty vehicle. I've left the dirt options in there so you can easily toggle between dirt for like muddy environments and then rust for then dust for dusty environments such as sand. And yeah, I'm quite happy with how this is looking at the moment, so I'm going to exit Cycles View. Save it. And we're going to jump over into the interior layer. Now this one is hopefully not going to take too long. I'm going to try to spend less than an hour on this one, or I'll try and keep this down to perhaps half an hour. But yeah, let's set up some base shaders to start with, and then we'll take a look in the viewport and see how it looks. So I'm going to bring up rubber black for that one. And also just going to make sure everything is shaded smooth. Some things look really weird shaded smooth by the way, but they look fine in Cycles. Alright, this little end cap, let's go make that rusty. Rust, so shade of rust dark. Oop. By the way, you can also use what's called the material preview over here, and that will source its materials based on what's in the Cycles editor without worrying too much about stuff. So you can see it's got the chairs there, those are using a different shader, so we'll ignore them, but yeah. Alright, so this one here, we can make this one here also rust. Let's go rust mechanics. This one here, once again we'll go rust mechanics. Now this floor we can either have as a procedural or we can paint it. We're going to use purely procedurals for now. So what I'm going to bring up is we'll have the one of the weapon shaders. So let's go grab that shader front plate. I'm just going to rename this to shader GI main, which is the name of the object. And for this one here, we have our global armor group here. I'm just going to make this its own user. And just zoom in on that name. We can call this one here Global Interior Group. And going to get rid of that weapon stars and the dirt one, don't need those. We'll have our dirt colour, will be this one, or dust colour. Get rid of that, get rid of that. Get rid of these two, they are irrelevant. And paint colour is the colour of painted objects. Yeah, we can probably still use this one for now. This will be the default colour of the paint inside the vehicle. So we can change this, but that is the default colour. Alright, now for the UVs, we're going to make sure that we call this texture. And we create a new one and we call this tile. That's just how it works with the node editor here. So you can see we've got an attribute coming in for tile for the vector, and that will just source this UV. So we can grab it and make sure we're not in paint mode. And let's just scale this one up perhaps 5 times. Alright. So the straps for now, these can use the rubber shader. Link those up. Our clips, I'm actually going to make these rusty as well. Just add that little bit of twist to it. So I'm going to go rust dark will be called for this one. And I'm just going to change the viewport colour of this by scrolling all the way down to the bottom. And I'm just going to make that a bit of a rusty colour, just so I can see what has it and what doesn't. And link it up with that middle one. So up here, and I think that was it. We've got this little clip as well. Alright, so that's that one there done. Alright, so grab, I'll slide all the way to the top. Next one here, rubber, and grab all of these thick ones. There'll be that rubber as well, and we'll have a blue, a red, and perhaps we'll have a green as well. Alright. Bring it up for a bit of a dark green colour. Got a shader here for the exposed metal, which is basically just a gloss shader. There's not much else for it. From here, just for a bit of colour, and make this spread. Right, so this one here is going to be shader dial red. We just press home over here to find it. But using a rubber shader at the moment, we probably don't want this being rubber, so I'm going to delete that, and we're going to just make this a bright red. I'm going to add in a mix shader. Like that in. And we're going to mix together a diffuse and an emission. And input, layer weight, we're going to use the facing pass as a effector value. Going to add in a input, a RGB, and he's going to be red. Doesn't need to be pure red, by the way, but it can be something close to it. It's going to get plugged into the diffuse and the emission. Strength can be probably 2, and roughness is fine for that, and the blend weight perhaps a 0.1, I'd say. We can fix this in a bit anyway. Okay, where was I? Getting through here. Alright, so there's a few different shaders to put on here. This one here, I'm going to give this one here just the standard rust material, rust dark. Link it up to that one. These ones, of course, can be linked as well. And standard rivet shader onto those ones. Rivet shader is just the standard shader like all the rest of them. Nothing new there. Alright, now this one I'm going to use the red rubber, but I'm going to change this to a red rubber bright, and we're going to make a much brighter red. Crank up the red level as well. Just going to hide all this glass for now. We'll be using a different shader on that later. We're actually not going to be using a glass shader, we'll be using a transparent shader, because glass really affects render times. Caustics are just a little bit finicky. I just realized that I've placed the wrong shader on this one. This one here should be red. Grab one of these. This one here can be blue. It's green for those ones. Just getting a little bit of colour variation around. Separate out those buttons. You can keep the buttons in, by the way, but this just allows you to animate them being pressed. And we'll just Define that shader. This one here is going to be rubber. Okay, this is coming along quite nicely. We'll need a few more shaders in here, but first just going to wrap up with these pieces that we already have shaders for. So, namely, these ones can just be rubber. Grab this one, just got this rust dark at the moment, or perhaps we'll go rust dark dusty. Grab the center one. Let's go, which one should we do? Shader rust dark, I suppose. You finish that one. U3 will be rubber. Alright, we're almost done on some of the base materials. Glove box, I'm going to give these the rubber material for now, for the dash. We will be giving this its own shader, so I'm going to call this one here shader dash. Save this. Link up those materials and hide that for now. We'll was going to make a shader plastic black, and this one here is going to be a mixed shader between a diffuse and a glossy. Diffuse is going to be black, and we'll probably use a layer weight and a Fresnel and perhaps a 1.5 just for that plastic for now. Alright, the transparent one, I'm going to call this one here shader transparent. Alright, now this transparent one is, we're going to have a mix between a diffuse and a a shader transparent. Gonna mix between these two. Gonna go mix shader. This one here, this one here. Going to add in a texture, a noise texture. Scale of noise is going to be probably a 1.5, a detail of 6, and a distortion of 0. Color ramp. Going to add in a input RGB. I'm going to connect that up to the diffuse color. And yeah, that's the transparent one. Alright, so just going to cut that material. And this, our little dials here, these ones here can just be the plastic material. And just going to make that quite dark in the viewport just so we can see the shading. Like this. And the one at the back, this one here, I'm going to create a new diffuse shader. I'm just going to call this one here shader dial. Let's just call it shader dial for now. Diffuse of white, that will be fine. Now this one here, I'm going to go shader crack, or shader glass crack. And this one is going to be none of those, or that one, or that one, or that one. It's just going to be a transparent. And we're going to make it semi-transparent. So it's noticeable, but yeah. Yeah, put it somewhere about there would be good. Let's hide these. Make those back ones black. Going to link up these ones. And this one here, I'm going to go shader, plastic, and go plastic white. Now these little dials, or these little switches, we're going to create a new shader for this, and we're just going to call this one here shader metal clean. It's going to be a mix shader. Actually, let's just have a straight glossy shader, I think, and roughness of perhaps a 0.1. And we'll link up this one with that one. grab these little texts. Gonna go with that same material. And we're gonna have it, do that. Black for the back one. Like so. Alright, now all that's left is we have the pieces down here. Let's give them a rubber material for now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to isolate this, I'm going to go shader, and this one here is going to be GI floor mat. And we'll see what we have to do to this one to make it look cool. Alright, let's remove that, add in a new material. This one here is going to be shader GI seat. GI, by the way, stands for Geo Interior. I think we established this in the modelling phase. We've got GI is G, it's like Geo, and then I for interior, W for weapons, A for armour, P for panels, and the shaders, I just put shade in front of it and then we know which ones it's assigned to. And yeah, just a little naming convention that I like to use. Okay, we're going to call this one sheet room. This one here, leave it as a diffuse for now. So this one here, we're going to call this one here seat main. Seat detail, and seat detail is of course going to be all of these things. And just call this one here shader seat inner. Oh, forgot the GI. And those are the same geo, so that's fine. And that is everything. So we're going to switch into rendered view now. Shall we save this? And rendered, and that will load up. Going to take a while, and yeah, we're going to probably be using some more shaders from the material collection, the Cycles material library, just to save time. Okay, so this is what it's looking like at the moment. We'll ignore the seats for now, we've got to go do them in the dash. So it's coming over here and just seeing how well these things look. The green piece here, what's the green one? Rubber green. Finding the green very prominent for this one, so I'm just gonna Let's just go rubber red. And yeah, red blends in quite nicely. Green is great if you have a lot of green. If you've got green cables everywhere, it looks awesome. But if it's just like a couple, it just looks unusual. Alright, so just zoom in here. Take a look at this rust. Alright, so it's taking a very long time to render, as you can see. Probably just because I've got the recorder going and Photoshop open and Unity. But nevertheless, it's going slow, so we are just going to be using this kind of preview, so I apologise for that. But you can see it's looking quite nice. This rust texture actually fits in on the steering wheel quite well alongside this rubber, so I'm quite happy with that. This red, it's fun. This needs to be toned down a little. So we need to bring it down a fraction. Something like that, it's good. Hide some stuff that will improve render times significantly. Now this one here, we haven't connected up this yet. Alright, so we need it to be fairly close like this. Going to add in a colour, brightness contrast node, check it in here. Contrast of maybe like 6, which will make it much sharper. Scale it up a ton. Alright, and you can see the dirt patches we're getting all over it now. Detail, by the way, if you turn that to 0, you get very smooth things. Doing that up, you get these very fine little flicks, which is what we want. Alright. So we're going to need to adjust this down a bit. Soften it out a little. And I'm going to use a colour mix. And if we turn this down to not black. Turn this to white. Yeah, there we go. So what we're doing is we're just blending this in. So something like that. Transparency, going to bring down the whole thing. Colour of the diffuse, I'm going to give that a very slight yellowy tinge. It's lighter than that. Alright, now you can see how the saturation of this really affects what's behind it, so I want to keep that quite low. Just playing with the settings a little at the moment. Alright, so I think I've got the levels right between these two shaders now. I'm just going to use a final mix node, and this one here is going to mix between fully transparent and what it is at the moment. Oops. Just realised I got this around the wrong way. There we go. So something like this is coming quite nice. And now we have two controls. We have this intermediate control controls one half of the stuff, and this one controls the other one. And then those are just our colours. Alright, so that is our colours there. Take a look at this dash over here, see what we can do. We're on about 0.3 blend, and what this one's going to do is just blend between the glossy around the outsides and diffuse where we can see it. So we want to go the other way actually, so just throw on a 0.7. Tone down this glossiness a little, and that's quite a nice just plasticky tone. So you can see our transparent shader has been applied over here as well, and that's the same transparent shader that we'll be applying to things like the lights and stuff later on. Alright, so I'm fairly happy with how that dash is looking at the moment. Alright, let's grab these floor mats. Just going to press Shift H, and that'll improve our render time significantly. Alright, so we've got this rubber shader on it at the moment. What I want to do is I want to make sure I save my scene. And we're going to go add in a group, dirt, group, and we're going to go global interior group. Color, hue, saturation. I can turn the value to 0.75. I can take this dust color to here, throw that into that one, and take the dust color directly across into here, and see what that shade looks like. So that's our shader, and we'll throw in our displacement onto there as well. And you can see we're getting this very caked on dust stuff. Okay, so you can see how it's caking on now. So we want to add in a texture, a noise texture, and we're going to let's scale at perhaps 2, detail of like 10, and add in a converter, color ramp, color, brightness, contrast, add in a mix shader, throw that down to there, the shader into the end one, throw that contrast a bit just so we can see stuff. And we can just invert things by flipping these around. And you can see where we're getting the dirt on at the moment, and where we're getting this standard rubber texture. So you can mix around with these values and see what you like. Just going to take that none to negatives. Put that down. We're just going to. We want these to be quite dirty, but not excessively. So I'm actually going to isolate this color node from here. Going to let's just use use this color. See what we like. And perhaps get quite a dark, gritty brown. Make sure we plug into the right value. Okay, that explains why it wasn't working correctly. So something like that. Okay, and we're actually going to use that same noise value here on a colour mix. Now the second value is always set to be 0.5, which means 0 displacement. And we're going to plug this one directly into the top. So currently it's sitting at half displacement, and we're going to grab this colour and make sure we can see them both. The colour into the factor value. And we should probably also use the factor rather than the colour for that. Alright, and that's that one done. I'm just going to pause the recording and grab a drink, and I'll be back in a moment. Alright, so next on the agenda is we have the dash. So I'm just going to press Shift H to hide everything. By the way, don't use numbered slash to go into local view. Doesn't work with cycles. You can switch layers once you've already loaded. So as you can see up the top here, it is loading every single image in the scene. So it won't need to reload anything once you're in cycles. You just need to go through and you can just switch layers, you can hide and unhide things, and yeah. It's almost done. There we go. So this is what we've got at the moment. I'm just going to bring up my reference folder. Over here. Let's go to mechanics. Where is it? There we go. And load up dash. And no, we actually want interior. Alright, so you can see some of these are just painted dashboards, like these ones. Oh, they're all painted actually, apart from this one. So we want kind of like a rubber feel, but so we're going to use the same rubber shader, but we will have a bit of a bump on it. So to do that, we'll zoom in, and I might actually just not use this rubber. I'm going to go add in a shader, and add in a diffuse, and add in a glossy, add in a mix, and we'll mix these ones together, and we want this to be very dark, something like that. Alright, and then we'll just allow it to have some sort of highlights on it, so probably a little bit darker. So I'm actually going to add in a input RGB, make that very dark, and we're just going to link it up into these values, something like that. Okay, let's add in a texture, image texture. No, we won't have image texture, we'll use texture, noise texture. And scale is going to be very high, maybe 50, but not 503, 50. Detail of, turn that right down to 0 actually. And let's plug that in, let's go. here. Color ramp. Just minimize this. There we go. You can access settings over here, so that's alright. Just going to go color mix. And that will be our displacement. So you can see straight away that it's way too big. So let's crank that all the way up. Higher. Higher. It's also very stretched. The reason for this is the scale is set to 0.126, and because it's sculpted we can't edit that now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go input, and we're going to go attribute. Got this one here, texture. And I believe this will correct it. There we go. Okay. Let's go something higher, like 5,000. Alright, so we're getting these very fine details now. Crank up that detail, see what we get with that on. And I'm just going to tighten this up a little. $10,000 I think is the max, isn't it? Yeah. Gee. Oh no, they've changed it. It used to be, I think 10,000 was the max. Actually, I'm quite liking 20,000. Yeah, that's quite good. Alright, so we're going to add in a group. Going to add in the, so I'm going to group these as well. This group I'm going to call shader group dash, and we've got our color and our vector. Okay, I'm going to add in a group. We're going to add in the dirt. Use saturation. RGB. Copy that one, paste it in there. Throw them across. And we're going to go shader. Oh, make fun. Mix shader. Going to mix together these two. Going to add in a color mix. Going to mix together these two. And let's bring this preview window down so I've got a little more room up here. Alright, so let's plug that one straight into there for now. Cut it back, and that's just a 50-50 mix at the moment. So we want to go add in a noise texture, going to add in a brightness contrast, color ramp, and Look. So we're just going to link these up. And take that one down to that mix shader. And that one. And I'm also going to take this attribute over into this vector so we get that looking okay. Alright, now you can see it does sharpen up the corners a lot, as it wasn't, as there's seams going around there. But there's not a lot we can do about that except for remapping stuff. Unless we perhaps go geometry and see what parametric does. Might fix it. I don't know. I'm just going to map these really close for now, just so we can see where it's being mixed. Looks like we're going to be using this one for now. I mean, it's fine like that. Alright, so the scale is up a bit high at the moment. Something like that. I'm going to turn that contrast right down. Just mix these together a little. We can bring up this value as well, so we can adjust how much of that dash actually shows through. So we can take that just off black, and we're going to take this one here off white. Just so it's a little more subtle. So we can see it's dirty, but it's not so overpowering. Alright, so it's very, yeah, something like that. Alright, let's bring everything back. We'll see how this is going. Now we've got this one here. There's two textures, texture and tile, that's good. Alright, delete that mapping node, we don't need that. What I want to do is zoom in here. And I'm just going to come down to our paint color and just see where this is affecting. Alright. There's that value there. Alright, so that's our base colour that we've got in here. So I'm just going to grab our global and make that a little brighter. Also going to take this dust value all the way over to these factor values over here. And now we can just control them directly from this. So we can tone this down to perhaps 0.4, 3. And then we'll just add a little bit of bump to it. Alright, so it's quite nice as a generic dusty, rusty interior. Probably come up here and perhaps decrease that scale a little. Which will give us some nice big rust patches on it. Alright, and that's that one done. Right. So I'm just going to look at just the seat now. And we can start texturing this. Alright, so bringing this references folder back, I'm just going to look at this image here, which will pop up in a moment. Alright, so this is the kind of style seat that we've got. It is very rubbery. I imagine this seat gets used a lot, so it's going to be dusty, but it's going to be a lot cleaner than everything else in the environment, in the vehicle. Mainly because it just gets sat on a lot. So let's grab a group. We're going to grab in that dash. And this one here is called texture. Map that up to there, that's there, you can delete this one, and yeah, let's go add in a group. I'm going to add in the interior group, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this, I'm going to call this one here paint color, this one here will be dust color, and this one here I'm going to be calling seat color. Just so we can edit the seat's color effectively. So I'm going to make this quite dark. I want this to be a very dark seat. weapons one. Okay, this one here, seed color. It's home, we'll get back all of these. Go to that seed color, plug it into there, and that's our seed color. So that way we can adjust all of the seed colors at once. Alright, so this is our seed at the moment. Let's plug that color into displacement. Let's add in a group. We're going to add in the dust group, the dirt group I should say. I don't know why I haven't fixed this. It's got this color 2 in here. Color 2 goes to one of these up here, I think. Yep, this is the one here. So if we go shader, color brightness contrast, no, not brightness contrast, we want hue saturation, and turn that value to a 0.75. You plug that color into there, and we're just going to delete that color too, just because it's exactly the same effectively. I think it was like 0.76 or some weird number. So let's go, shader mix. Almost done on this tutorial series. Very exciting. I'm looking forward to finishing this up, mainly because I am very tired. And I have another tutorial series to do today as well. So you can look forward to that one in the same issue, I think. Alright, so let's go texture, noise texture. Move that one across. Let's go converter, color ramp. And input, going to go attribute. Bring that across, bring this color down into that factor value, and we're going to have a color mix down here, and we're going to mix together these in the same way. Oop, no, that was the wrong one. This one. That one goes in there. Alright, so let's crank up that scale, the detail, the contrast, and see where this is being applied at the moment. Alright, that's being applied on this top one, not the one that we've got selected, mainly because it hasn't got that texture attribute. So just going to select all of these. Make sure they have a texture UV map. Alright, so we can scale this back down now. Contrast can come right down. Something soft. We'll bring this one. Just bring that one off grey and this one here off white. We'll just stop it being pure any one colour. And just that subtle ease between them. It's working quite nicely. just going to assign these all that same shader. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it back and we're going to go seed. And it doesn't matter too much if we've got duplicate shaders in here. They'll be deleted when we save the file. Alright, so let's go hue saturation value. I'm going to make this one here a bit brighter. And it's a black seat, so it's not going to be much different. Let's see what we've got. No, 5 should be about right. Just that scale down a little. These are the ramps, and that's about right. Okay, now the room is going to be the same deal. So we call that room. Color, hue saturation. I'm going to grab this same color here. I'm going to go 0.5, darken that one out. Darken that one up as well. For the seat detail, we are just going to use, we'll add in that dash shader again, becoming quite a useful shader. And we're going to take that one to surface and into displacement. Now we'll just brighten it up a bit. And I'm just going to pause and let this render for a second to see what it's looking like. Alright, so I let that one there render for a bit. And you can see this, I changed a couple of the settings to make it a little darker, a little more washed out. And I'm quite happy with that, it's fine as it is. You can see this thing looks like it's standing out really strong, this box. And that is fine, that's actually, I'm quite happy with it standing out like that. It's a quite nice contrast, and that's going to be a little more effective once we have all of the basically everything up to maximum. So zooming out, let's twist around, just take a last look at the dash. I'm going to wrap this up because it's taking a very long time, and then we will move on to some quick lighting and rendering. Nothing over the top. We're going to be sorting that out in another tutorial, but yeah, just make sure this is fine. I will grab these styles. These are going to be just a little bit dark, and I might make them blue. Probably somewhere about there. Let's hide this one and click update. I'm going to grab this and I'm just going to throw that emission up there and just see how this is actually, how much is actually emitting. So maybe probably going to set this back to maybe 0.7 or so. 0.5, we'll have it straight in the middle. Alright, so that's actually glowing, by the way. See how you can see these little speckles around it right from the get-go? All this red? That's not the best sign. That generally means that you've got it way too high, so I'm going to cut that in half down to 2 for emission. Maybe 2.5, just so that we can have a couple of speckles, it's fine. But if you get too many, it's going to really glow up quite strong later on. So that is it for the interior. Now I would render this out for you now and show it off, but unfortunately that's going to take a really long time. I think the render times, even on my computer, is probably going to sit around maybe 2.5 hours for a frame at Full HD, with all of the modifiers applied. And just for a benchmark for you, I'm currently running on a 2.4 GHz quad core with 8 GB of RAM. This is on my laptop. My big computer is currently out of order, unfortunately, which is the one with 64 GB of RAM. But yeah. So yeah, if you've got a powerful computer, you're going to have no worries getting this all goods. But otherwise, yeah, just waiting onto a B-spline. I want it to be a little softer on the floor there. And just bring these colours in towards each other will sort of flush it out. Cool. Alright, so that's it for this one. What we're going to get into now is the lighting and rendering.